Today is March 1st, and as of today, I am beginning a new block collection. This block painting collection is actually going to be my last, but I will explain why and get to that in a little bit. I want to start off by explaining what the next one's going to be. This time, it's going to be a final set of 7. My last several ones have been 6, 4, 5 usually, but I'm returning to the format of having 7 of them for this one because that's how many blocks I have left. And these ones are going to be country themed. Because this is going to be my last collection, I was a little bit all over the place about how I wanted to do it. It's like there were so many ideas that I had that would have been made for such cute little collections that never got the chance to be created, unfortunately. So I had like this little mini list of all of these different ideas I could have done, and ultimately I decided to go in the direction of not only what sells best, because I need these ones to sell, but also what I feel the most drawn to in this moment, as well as kind of calling back to what started my block collection. I'll get to that in a minute as well. These blocks are going to be mostly country themed. We've got very like country scenes, farmers' fields, sort of landscape paintings featuring farm animals. We're gonna have cows, sheeps. People love the paintings I've done that feature cows and sheeps, so I'm doing those. I'm gonna be doing some geese. Actually, there's 3 different paintings that will include geese, which I haven't really done much before. And then there's going to be one that will include cats and one that includes horses as well. I kind of wanted to do a country cats part 2 actually, and I almost did, but I decided to compromise by doing at least one cat related block, and then the rest could be more focused on different farm animals. Well, animals you would find in the country. So let's talk about why this is my final block collection. So let me start by briefly explaining how I even started doing these in the first place, because I'm not even sure if I've ever done that. Prior to doing these blocks, I pretty much mostly only ever painted canvases, and not small canvases either, but large ones. 18 by 24 was my usual size. And these would take me like 6 months to do, so they took a long time. I had to put a lot of time and a lot of effort into them, but then they would take just as long, if not longer. Some of them took years to sell, some of them never sold at all. When I started putting my work in a gallery that was not far from where I lived, the woman that owned it became a mentor to me and a friend actually, and so she was someone that kind of guided me when I was first starting out as an artist and selling my work, and she was very helpful. She gave me a lot of advice. She brought this up to me multiple times and I just wasn't picking up what she was putting down for a while. She had told me that I should do paintings on wooden blocks of like local landmarks and areas. The area that I lived in was Prince Edward County in Ontario, and tourist season's insane, dude. Oh my god, tourist season's wild. Between April and October is just flooded with tourists, but especially that like the peak of it is between June and I would say September, where it's almost all day, every day for months. And then like as it, kids start going back to school and stuff, then it's mostly just the weekends that you see a lot of people coming out, for a lot of the local markets are done on the weekends. And so that's pretty much prime time to be selling work. So when I was putting my stuff in the gallery, I was getting a lot of attention. A lot of people were seeing my work, but because my paintings were so large and because they were so expensive, they were $600 on average, people weren't buying them, and that's understandable. Having the exposure of it wasn't necessarily helping me because of the type of art that I did. When I was expressing this frustration to her, she told me that a lot of artists do small little things that will sell quicker, and it's like it's their rent money, you know what I mean? It's like that little bit that they're getting throughout the month that pays their bills, in addition to the large big works that hopefully will sell eventually. I didn't have anything small. I didn't have anything that was my rent money. One of the things she recommended to me was doing blocks that were of local landmarks, local businesses that were really popular, etc., etc., because tourists would eat that shit up. And yeah, they do. When the tourists come to that area, they really do eat up all the touristy attractions, all the activities, anything county related on it, and they do eat up those little artsy things and all the little markets and things like that. She wasn't wrong, but you know, it took a while of convincing. She mentioned it to me several times before I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I got my papa to make me my first batch of blocks. I painted those out, and I learned so much, like just looking at the old photos of the way they used to be, where they weren't sanded down nice, they were really rough and scraggly, and even just seeing how much my paintings have changed between then and now, and how much better they are now is crazy. Actually, the difference is insane. I think it was 2018. I think it was 2018 or 2019, around September when I started doing these. So unfortunately, it was the tail end of tourist season, and between October and April, there's nothing. Okay, the entire area is just dead, dude. Like, nobody comes out here. The county is a very seasonal place where it's like everything is happening in the spring and summer and early fall, and after that it's just dead. It's the off season. There's just nothing going on. Nobody's working. A lot of people get laid off. A lot of the jobs in that area are seasonal. So a lot of the restaurants close, a lot of the businesses close during that time period because they're not making enough money to stay open for that 6 months of the year. The gallery that I had my stuff in wasn't one of those places. She stayed open all year round, but I found that outside of the holiday season, like just before Christmas, like November, December was the only time I sold anything otherwise. And so it was like dead most of the time. In the summertime, I would do art stands outside of her gallery. I didn't do this like an insane amount of times. I did this like several weekends in one summer, but it didn't become a regular thing for me because it was just so hot to sit outside and essentially in the sun for hours a day on weekends, and I would sometimes sell absolutely nothing. People would walk by you, people would look and then keep going, or people would stop and they'd make remarks because they didn't realize I was the artist. They thought I was just some girl sitting there watching stuff so that it didn't get stolen. And so they would say some of the nastiest shit like right in front of me. I didn't enjoy the experience. I had people try to haggle me on my prices, and this is when I was selling these blocks for 20 bucks. I was spending like 8 hours painting these, and then I was selling them for $20. Like, that's just, I realize now how insane that was, but when you're starting out, you tend to undercut yourself a lot. It's like, for, you know, if I made $20, it really wasn't worth sitting there for like 5 hours straight in the heat, you know, having to deal with people being not so kind sometimes, and selling maybe one block 20 bucks. Like, it just wasn't worth it. I stopped doing it. The unfortunate thing is that I went into this like 100%. Like, I painted so many of these off the bat. I started with like 12 of them, I believe. And it's like reality punched me in the face when they didn't do very well, because I was so convinced that they would. It was a great idea in theory. Like, a lot of tourists do really like that kind of stuff of the county. Even locals loved my blocks, but not maybe enough to buy them. And I had a hard time selling them, especially certain businesses did really well and would sell really quickly, and then others didn't. And I would just have a painting of something I can't sell because nobody wants it. Like, it's too specific, you know what I mean? What originally just started as local landmarks and popular businesses expanded over time. I started painting people's homes and their pets for them as commissions. I started painting portraits of people's faces on these blocks, and as what I would paint and the subjects I would paint started expanding, people started, you know, learning about my blocks from the local community pages where I would be posting them and sharing them, and people loved them. And it was just sort of sad because it was like the more that I would get myself out there, it felt frustrating that I still wasn't making any sales. Like, you would think that the more eyes on you, the more sales that you would make, like that would be equally going up, and it just kind of wasn't. Over time, I realized the importance of not underselling myself. I was spending sometimes 2-3 days working on a single block, painting them for 4 or 5 hours each day or more, and I'm selling them for 20 bucks. So the price went up to 40, and then after that it went up to 50, and I've capped it at that. They wouldn't ever be higher than that even if I were continuing, because people aren't willing to purchase them if they're too expensive. I think 50 is kind of the cutoff. But a lot of that was because since my blocks were in the gallery, she was taking a 30% commission, and I was basically making $20 anyway when I was selling them for 40. So I bumped it up so that I could just make that little bit more extra. Some of them I sold on my own, some of them I sold through the gallery, but they never really did as well as I thought that they would. I was always waiting for them to start flying off the shelves, and it just kind of never happened that way. And my mentor was just as surprised by this as I was, because she totally thought, like, she'd recommended this to several artists before me. This is not just like something she told me about. She told like every other artist she worked with to do this, and nobody else did it. And then I did it, and she also thought that this was just going to be insanely popular, and they just weren't. Unfortunately, people loved it, people thought it was cute, but maybe not enough to purchase. After a while, that starts to dampen your confidence a little bit, and also, you know, it sucks when you put like 8 hours into something hoping it's gonna sell because it's kind of your job, and then it doesn't. Around 2020, 2021. Yeah, I guess it was like 2021, 2022, actually, maybe. I decided I was going to start painting more of what I wanted to do, not just, you know, local county areas, not just local landmarks and businesses, but also what I wanted to paint, because I needed to at least be enjoying this process and kind of expanding my horizons a little bit with it. And hopefully, if my paintings weren't of things that were so specific, maybe more people would want to purchase them. So I did that. I expanded and I evolved, and I painted all kinds of things, and some of them sold and some of them never did. I unfortunately have entire collections that never ever sold. I had a lot of people that wanted to haggle me down on the price, which was incredibly insulting and deeply upsetting, and damaged my confidence over time that my work wasn't worth what I was selling it for, that people saw my work being like dollar store level. I had people sending me messages asking if they buy one, if I'll give them one for free, like as if the effort and the time and the skill that went into creating that block was worth nothing. It's like, I struggled so much with this aspect of being an artist, having people diminish your art, having people belittle it, having people not appreciate it, having people not understand it. I remember this one guy came up to my table once with, like, I guess it was his wife or his girlfriend, and he was looking at my blocks, and before I could even say anything to him, like, oh, you know, like, hey there, I hope you're having a good day, this is my art, like, I didn't even get a chance to say anything. He looked at them, then he looked at his girlfriend, and he was like, who would buy this for, like, these aren't worth $40. Like, this probably took this person like 10 minutes to do. No, it took me 8 hours. Like, you know, I would get remarks like that all the time, because people think that when an artist does something because it looks like it's easy for them, then it's easy to do. But this has been my entire life building up this skill to be as good as I am, completely on my own. I never went to art school. I never was taught by anybody outside of high school art classes, and it's frustrating to have that effort and that time and that skill be belittled that way right in front of your face, and to have people message me and tell me that my blocks are not worth $40 but they'll pay $20 for them, or asking me when I'll have a sale because they'd rather purchase them when they're cheaper because they can't afford to purchase them at that time. It's like, it was just so disheartening, and I found a lot of the time it made me not want to paint anymore. When I started painting for other people, I started doing commissions, I obviously got a lot more work. A lot more people wanted custom little paintings, and I probably could have kept going with that and that would have been successful, but I very quickly realized how draining commissions are. And as much as I loved making people happy with my work, I loved how excited it would make people when they would see that block, and how they would message me and tell me later how much they loved it and how happy their family members were to receive it if they gave it as a gift. You know, those messages made me really happy. But, you know, after a while, it was like painting was something I used to love. I used to just love creating art. It was a hobby. And the more it became a job, the more I started to dislike doing it. It sucked the enjoyment out of it for me. And that just kind of made all of those disheartening moments And the moments that broke my confidence and the moments that where I felt like my art wasn't appreciated or respected, it made all of that even worse. What do you think, little assistant? Do you like it? Yeah? What do you think? Thanks. Alright. Not done yet, but all that's left is the forefront details and then fixing up some things here and there, and then this one's done. All of that is to say, these blocks have been quite the roller coaster ride for me as an artist. They were the first thing I'd ever done that kind of got somewhat popular, you know, that did somewhat kind of well. These blocks did best during the time when I dropped the price to $20 per block. It was my first and only sale. I never did it again. I don't remember what year that was, but they popped off. Like, I did sell a lot of them. I sold like 10 of them in a very short time period, in a span of like 2 weeks, which was really exciting for me because that was new, but I made half of what I should have made, and it just made me realize that financially doing sales doesn't make sense for me as an artist, and definitely not at this stage where I'm still a beginner. I'm still like a baby small artist sort of situation. But they did really well then. I think I did that January 2022, and I did all the commissions in December of November, December 2021. I did Vlogmas in 2021, and so you can see me making those blocks, a lot of those commissions and stuff that I was doing at that time. That's when my blocks did the best, was when I was doing commissions for other people or I was selling them at half the price. Outside of that, they never really took off the way that I initially thought that they would. That said, I've continued to do them because I genuinely enjoy doing them, because they're a little bit unique. I like the concept, and a lot of people do. It's just they're probably more expensive than people are willing to pay, and unfortunately that's the same for a lot of art, as I've learned. Between people not being willing to pay the price for my blocks and always asking me if I'll do BOGOs or if I'll do sales, and my blocks just not really selling or gaining a lot of interest, it's like I just kind of was getting to a point where I was wondering if this was worth doing anymore. My papa makes my blocks in batches, and then I paint them, and then we make another batch when I run out. And with this batch, I kind of was already thinking about it potentially being my last because of everything we've talked about already. But then things kind of progressed with my Japan plans, and I realized that even if I wanted to continue to do these blocks, I realistically can't anymore. Sorry about the TV being so loud. I'm sure that's gonna be picking up just fine on my phone. My nanny's partially deaf, so the TV's gotta be extremely, extremely loud for her to hear it. But there's no other time I can film this today. So I'm moving to Japan at the end of the month, March 30th, give or take. So that's why it's so important for me to get these done as soon as I can, like before March 10th preferably, because I need time to sell them. I want to get all my blocks out. I want them sold, I want them gone. I've got, I think, about 21 sitting in my basement that have never sold. The Roses and Ruins collection was the previous block collection I did, and that hasn't sold. So I want to get all these blocks sold and get them done, get them out of here, so that I don't have to worry that I've got all this art just sitting in my grandparents' basement while I'm away at school, you know, and also I could use the money for this next chapter of my life. So that's the situation here. Hey, so it's March 20th, which is sickening. I was hoping to have these done much sooner, but perfection takes time, art takes time, and unfortunately I'm only about halfway through at this point, but that's okay. As long as they get done, I'm happy. So currently I'm working on blocks 4 and 5. This is kind of where we're at the moment. When it comes to block number 5, I kind of was thinking as I got started on it that maybe I wanted to switch the reference image a little bit and make it like further away. I have several reference images of this old back shed of the saloon that used to be on the old property. And I had like a further away shot that showed more of the building, and I thought maybe I would switch to that and have the ducks kind of, or the geese coming out of there. But I ultimately decided to stick with my original reference image of a closer shot. When I do collections like this, I try to make sure that there's a balance amongst the pieces. So for a large portion of this collection, a lot of the angles are wide. It's like further back, you're seeing a wide landscape shot. So when it comes to this particular piece, this is actually the only one in this entire collection that is a closer shot. And I thought that maybe that it would make sense to have a further back shot to match the others, but I don't know, I kind of thought that it might be nice to have one that's a little bit different from the others. There's always usually at least one piece per collection that is slightly different from the others, whether it's in the color palette or the subject even, or in this case the perspective and sort of the angle that the image overall is taken from. There's a little bit of a difference. So this one's sort of unique in that sense. It still matches in every other way, but it is different in the sense that it's a closer up shot. I guess it kind of matches with number 4, not just in terms of subject and the color scheme, but also the fact that this one's also a little bit closer up than the other ones are. So it's not entirely alone in that. Like there's 2 pieces that are closer, but they're sort of still like different levels of closer. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense here. Block number 1 is unique in the sense that it's the only one that has as much color as it does. It has red mostly throughout it, which is unique. I don't think any of the other blocks have red so far. So I'm thinking that as I go, I might try to find ways to incorporate that same sort of red into some of the other pieces so that it's not alone in that sense. It could be fine for it to be alone, but I don't want it to stand out like in a negative way. Even though I want some of the pieces to be unique amongst the group, I do want them to still be cohesive as a set together, since a lot of the photos of them will be taken that way, and it is a collection, so it feels like it makes sense to have that. So I just don't know exactly where I'm gonna place those bits of reds, but I think I'm gonna do it in one of these 2 pieces. Either the block number 4, block number 5 will feature something that's sort of red. I'm not saying for sure that I'll never return to doing blocks, although because my papa makes them for me, if he's not able to do so anymore, I can't see myself making them myself. There's so many other mediums and other things I could do that it doesn't necessarily bother me. I don't feel sad that I'm not going to be doing them anymore, because I'm still going to be painting, I'm still going to be creating art. I'm not like retiring or anything. I'm just, this series of paintings, this concept of wooden block paintings is what is coming to an end. But that's not to say that I'll never do them again. That's not to say that I won't, eventually return to this. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But at this point in time, it's just not realistic for me to do it while I'm overseas, and I just don't think I'll have the time even. Like, I don't even think I'm gonna have the time to be making art the way that I do now, balancing school and filming for YouTube and stuff. It's just not gonna be realistic. My art and how much of it I do and the type of art that I make is probably going to shift and change over the next year. And this is just kind of one of those sorts of things. This is a whole chapter of my life that's essentially ending, and that feels really weird. I was doing the mini block collection of paintings when I was still kind of dipping my toes into selling my art and being an artist as a job, not just as a hobby. And I'd sold a few paintings prior to that, but this was different. This was like, I don't know, it was just, I learned so much about what I enjoy painting. I learned a lot about what I feel comfortable doing. It was the series that gained me a little bit of popularity in the area in which I lived. A lot of people saw my work on the community pages and was aware of the artist that does these blocks, even if they didn't know me by name. And a lot of people would come up to my stand and be like, oh, I saw you on Facebook, like your art's really cool. And that was really fun. And it was the series I was doing when I first started getting commissions and started getting a lot of commissions, and also how I learned that maybe doing commissions isn't for me. It was something that I was doing when I learned about the importance of not selling myself short and not selling my art for half of what it's actually worth. So much more than I'm even selling it for. These are worth $300 or more per block, and I'm selling them for 50 bucks. Like, even when I was selling them at $20, I was so robbing myself. And this was the thing I was doing when I learned that. I learned so many lessons as an artist and as a creative and as a person while doing my blocks. I also learned a lot about how rude people can be and insensitive people can be, and kind of having those trials as an artist and feel like questioning whether my art was worth it or whether I should even be picking up a paintbrush, feeling like that's something that I almost didn't even want to do anymore because of the way that people would treat my art, like as if it was a print from Jisk instead of something uniquely handmade. I've had a lot of people who I've done commissions for repeatedly to this day tell me how much they love their pieces and how much they love what I do. And I've gifted these blocks to friends and family with, depictions of their pets and such. Even the one I have of Shorty Pants, it really is such a it was a big part of my life doing these blocks. It was a big part of me as an artist and almost a signature thing for me. And the fact that I'm not going to be doing them anymore does feel a little bit weird, but I'm also okay with it because of all the things we discussed about the fact that they take so long to do and so much effort, and they don't really sell. They're really difficult to make prints out of because I have to take photos of them. I can't scan them because they're 2 inches thick, so I have to take pictures of them from the right angle so that they're not the light bounces off of them weird. And some of them would be amazing prints, and I actually just can't make prints out of them because I can't get a good photo of them to do so, especially the ones that are dark in color. The light bounces off of them and it doesn't look good in photos, and that's sort of frustrating. So I can't even, once I've sold the original, that's it. I can't continue to make money off of that painting that I've worked so hard on. Whereas with paper paintings, for example, or even some canvases even, I can do that. I can sell my most popular works as prints because they're easy to make out of those. But unfortunately the blocks are just a little more difficult in that regard. It's sad, all endings are sad, but it's also kind of I'm ready to be done, I've been thinking that if I can't get these ones sold, part of me has considered doing a sale, dropping them down to $30 or $40 even, but probably more $30, and doing it that way. I just always remember how much I promised myself I'd never do that again. So I have to stick with that. I think I have to stay true to myself. If I can't sell them, I can't sell them, I guess it's fine. But it is a goal for myself to have as many of them gone as I can get gone by the time I go to Japan. I think I'm going to be really happy with this final set of 7 and feel really happy with the way that I'm ending this. I think it was really important to me to end this the way I kind of started it, with it being very country sort of themed, because that's where this entire wooden block concept was born, was in a small little country area that I lived in. And so I think that it felt like coming full circle almost. I even contemplated doing another final set of Prince Edward County blocks, but because I don't live in that area anymore, the people who would actually be interested in purchasing those are all the way over there, and I live an hour and a half away now, so I don't know how I would get it to people because you can't ship these. Like, I used to be able to. They were $5 to ship them, and then it became $8, and then it became $20 after COVID, and it was like, I don't even feel comfortable paying $20 in shipping for anything. I'm not gonna ask someone else to do that because that's not coming out of the money that I make from the block. The block's $50 and then the shipping is $20 on top of that. Like, I don't blame people for thinking that's unrealistic because I think it's unrealistic. So shipping them out isn't an option. I'd have to drive them out there myself and deliver them to people if people aren't willing to drive an hour and a half out to pick them up. So I just figured if I do a country theme, then it's like paying homage to that without being explicitly county. And also, a lot of the reference images are ones I've actually taken of places. Some of them were my own property at the time, and so I'll be using those as the base for this collection, and kind of making use of some of those reference images. I took so many pictures over the years of things in the county that I was inspired by and wanted to eventually paint and never did. So I'm making use of at least some of those in this collection this time. And that's it for today's video. I will continue to do art project making of videos. That's not going to change, but this is the last block collection that you're going to see. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you love the way that this collection turned out as much as I do, and I hope you look forward to what I create in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.